All right, we are saddled up and loaded in the trailer, and we are headed to an indoor barn about 15 miles down the road, and we're gonna do a little field trip today. So here we go. Oh, and we have a little fun size in the front of the trailer with him too, so I can ride him over there as well.
Good.
Ambrose would have only been hauled a couple other times in his life. He has been hauled over to the vet for his dental, and then when he was a baby colt, he would have been herded in out of pasture with his mom with the other mares, and then sometimes they are loaded in the trailer and hauled out to a different pasture. So that would have been the only other time that he's been hauled. So I was very proud with how he handled standing in here, and I went ahead and bridled inside the trailer because it just eliminated opportunity for any funny business, because if I had unloaded him out of the trailer, he'd have been in a new environment, he'd have seen lots of different horses, and I wouldn't have been able to have his attention. He'd have put his head way up too high in the air for me to bridle. So if I just eliminate all of that distraction and bridle him in the horse trailer, I have a better chance of success by doing it in here. And then when I lead him into this indoor barn for the first time, you know, anytime leading a horse from light to dark, their eyes have to adjust, just like loading in a horse trailer. And so for him to quietly walk into this barn through this door, there's a tractor on one side, there's barrels on the other, it's a narrow pathway. He handles this all really, really well for his first time going somewhere else besides home. And the only reason I had brought Fun Size with us was because anytime you haul somewhere and you have an opportunity to ride inside, you take that and you haul as many horses as you can. It wasn't because Ambrose needed a buddy or anything like that. Alright, so here we are on our little field trip, and we hauled a few miles across town over to Sherry and Jeremy Cass's indoor barn, and I just want to give a huge shout out to them for allowing me to do this, because, you know, we couldn't do what we do in the horse industry without a lot of support from neighbors and friends and sponsors. And, you know, I don't think that there was a barrel race that I went to all year long in South Dakota and in Wyoming that Cass Equine didn't sponsor in one way or another. So huge shout out to them. And if you're looking for any Kensington products, Back on Track products, you can take a look at their website or their Facebook, and I'll try to put links in the description box for you, or take a look at their Facebook page. Give them a shout out because they always have great deals going on. So that's my shameless plug for them, and I'm going to get on this guy and get to work. So you get to see all of the things that go on when we first ride a horse in an indoor barn for the first time. Oh, and another thing I wanted to let you know, I did not warm him up at all. For one, I'm extremely afraid that I'm going to run out of horse. It is 50 degrees today. This guy's been riding, as you know, in 20 degrees. He's totally haired up. I really think he's going to get tired working in good footing in a warm barn without any sort of wind, probably way quicker than I'd like him to get. So I'm just going to do as much as I can with what I can, and since he's the type of horse so far that has shown me that he doesn't require a really heavy-duty warm-up and groundwork protocol, we're just going to jump on and see how it goes, okay, and deal with it. Oh, and another thing, I changed to a traditional snaffle on him. I kept the cavus on. It's still, you know, I got one finger in there, and so far he seems to like this already. There's no gapping, there's no crabby. Setting my martingale, checking my cinch, and we're going to go get on. Okay, I have to admit I've worked in some barns that were pretty dark and dimly lit and kind of scary, and you know, you don't get a whole lot accomplished with the horse except for trying to get them past the things that they're scared of. So I was really pleased that this guy walked right in, didn't care at all about stuff that was hanging on the walls, didn't care about stuff in the corners. I've been in some barns where my horses just refuse to ride into those corners, and the best that I can do is work them really hard on the one side of the arena that they were willing to go until they wanted to rest and walk over near that place that they were scared of. So the fact that he was willing to walk along the wall and use the whole perimeter of the arena really made me happy. And what I start out by doing is just showing him the perimeter of the arena, just like I did in every other circumstance when I added something new to his resume of things that he could do. And since we're in a new bit, a new piece of equipment here, we're not gonna add crazy things to it. We're just gonna work on the same stuff we'd been working on up until now. Staying on the perimeter of the arena, making circles off the perimeter, and we're going to continue trying to work on our basic handle that we've been working on, those rollaways, inside rolls, stop, back up, change of direction, drop to trot, lead change. That's what my plan was to work on. And he has the same rules in this arena that he has in the arena at home. Now remember, when we first walked in, we had that tractor over there, so we can't drift so far that we hit the tractor. There's also a round pen in this indoor barn. We can't drift so far that we run into the rail of that barn. So there's a side of this arena that he's gonna have to balance himself, and he's gonna have to balance himself on those corners rather than using the wall of the arena to balance himself on. And as a rider, what I can do to help him with this is looking at the route that I want to take with him and plan it long before we get to that point when we're coming across the arena. So to look the direction we want to turn one stride before we get there isn't soon enough. I need to plan at least, I don't know, 5 to 10 strides out where I want his body to go to. So I really need to pay attention to look up, balance in my own shoulders, support him through my legs and my core as we come around there so that he doesn't drift clear into that tractor or into the rail of the round pen. I can already see a difference in this first inside roll. He's not tucking his head in super tight into his chest, and he's coming through it a whole lot cleaner for me rather than that tight head where he had to take multiple steps and it turned into a 3-point turn. So I can tell he's already really liking this bit so far. I'm trying to keep him over on the rail, so every time he comes off just a little bit, I'm elevating my inside rein and taking my outside rein out just a little bit, inside leg pushing him back over to the rail if he doesn't want to get on it and ride as parallel to it as I would like him to. He's working these inside rolls really well. I'm really happy with them. I come off the rail and work a smaller circle, so again, take any opportunity that I can to work smaller circles and balance and hold himself together, not fall in. We practice a stop, we practice a rollaway here. So we keep on adding more of the basic handle to them as we go, rather than just working the same old basic boring circles. And this is how we can keep a horse fresh when we're working them indoors or inside an arena or working on arena type stuff. In this stop, I actually set him up to do an inside roll, but the way he was set up, he had his hip kicked to the other side, so I took the opportunity just to turn him and make it a rollaway. Anytime in these beginning stages, I try to work with how their hip is set up to make that roll and not create a fight. It just makes it a little bit nicer. Sorry for the edit there. My cameraman needed to take a quick break, so I stopped for him. He took a little break and we started right back up again. Here's an example of a rollaway using the wall to my advantage. I have plenty of space. I'm backing him up. I'm asking him to step over when I feel that inside hind right foot up underneath us. And rather than pull on his face, I go to my rein and I tap my rein on his shoulder instead to help him move through that turn. And that sure beats pulling on their face a whole bunch. And it also beats spurring the heck out of him too. In this next stop, I want you to see that I gave him the cue and he started to walk through it, so I had to hold him and I had to insist on backing him up before I rolled him. See how he just started to cheat me right there? And if you didn't see it, rewind and look at that again. He started to step through the stop. So now we are, what is this, 12 rides into it, and he's cheating us on the stop. And they all do this, okay? And this is something that I want to impress upon you, is that they will all cheat you no matter how good they're coming along or how easygoing they're going to be. You have to be able to catch it and correct it at the very moment that it happens, okay? So now I'm going to take the opportunity to let him play game over, and look at, he wants to go long and low, he wants to stretch, he wants to be quiet. And this game works on every type of horse I use it on, whether they are race bred, cutting bred, ranch bred, foundation bred, halter bred. They will play game over after they have been worked like I just got done working him. Now, if they're a race bred kind of horse and they have a whole lot more energy, we go through all of that basic handle a little bit longer than what we just did, but they still figure it out. So I'm going to use this wall here to take the opportunity to practice side pass with him and a little bit of lateral work. That's one thing that I love about an indoor barn, is that you can really isolate maneuvers on the wall like this. I get a couple of steps, I take him right back up to it again, I ask him for it again, both directions. We don't have to drill on it for very long, but we want to continue to introduce this basic handle, okay? And he really wants to lead with his shoulder, and so I have to keep on correcting him with my right rein, elevating that shoulder and kicking with my right leg to kick that hip over and square him back up so he's perpendicular to that wall. Don't forget with the posting, when we take off and do a trot, we want to be on the correct diagonal here, because I'm going to ask him for a left lead. And remember, it's the quickest, fastest, easiest way to be in timing with your horse when you are asking for the next gait. So I post faster here. I'm using my outside leg, kick his hip over, take the left lead, and we lope off. I'm driving really hard with my legs here. As we come around this side of the arena where he has to really balance himself, he drops to a trot on me, and I have to use my outside leg to gain momentum again and drive him forward through this corner. This takes a tremendous amount of leg to get them through at that speed around this arena. and he's wanting to cut just a little bit early on me on the corner of this arena. And you could tell as he comes around, he's coming off the arena rail just a little bit more than I'd like him to. So I'm just going to have to use a hard inside leg to hold him over there. Now we drop to the trot, and I sit a beat as I come across, change my diagonal to pick up my right lead. Okay, if you didn't see that, rewind the video and rewatch that spot where I sit a beat. Remember, the trot is a 2-beat gait, 1, 2. You can either stand a beat or you can sit a beat to change your diagonal. I'm driving him really hard with my seat and legs as I go around this arena. Remember, this is a horse that would prefer to be riding out. And anytime we put him in a round pen, an indoor barn, or an arena, he's going to slow down, and we're going to have to drive harder through our legs and our seat. We're going to have more momentum and more energy in our body. That doesn't mean that we're bouncing up there. It doesn't mean that our hands are hustling them, but we are driving through our seat and our thigh and our calves all the time, okay? So we are constantly riding and pushing him forward. Now when I break down to a trot here, it's a little more noticeable when I try to change my diagonal because I lose a little bit more momentum. So I sit longer to drive him with my seat, and I spank him with my stick on his outside hip to pick up that left lead. Now if you go back to one of the first couple of rides, remember we use the reins on the outside hip for the direction that we're going. So if we want to go left, we're going to spank on the right. If we're going to go right, we need to spank on the left if we have somebody that's lacking a little bit of ambition. So we're going to do lots of drop to trot lead changes here. And this is why it's so important for us to be correct in our body when we're riding any horse, not just colts. So if you're out in your hips, if you have a bad knee, if you have a bad ankle like I have in my case, when we aren't correct in our bodies, it's really hard for them to be correct. And I can always tell when I have something going on with myself when, like, say, hypothetically, I have 3 colts that aren't picking up a right lead for me. I know darn well there's something going on in my left hip or the left side of my body. When something is imbalanced on me, my horses can't be correct. So to those who just want to sit up there and not do anything and blame the horse for everything, you know, I don't have a whole lot of respect for you. We have to be correct, and we have to take responsibility for ourselves in order for our horses to perform properly for us. So I pitched the reins to him, and look at how quiet he got as soon as I pitched the reins. And I'm going to take this opportunity right here to put him in a little bit of a spin. And look at how clean he started to come through. I mean, he cheats at the end, but that's just muscle memory and strength training exercise. He's going to have to learn how to hold that hip in place. I correct him right there real quick, and then I release and I let him go on again. But man, wasn't that a cool little maneuver right there? I think those are some of the little teeny tidbits of training that make it all worthwhile when little stuff like that happens, and we need to really recognize the try in our horses when they're trying to get it for us. Like 3/4 of this turn, this guy is getting it, and then the last little bit, he just can't hold the rest of it, and so he just needs a reminder where he needs to keep his hip. Did you see right there? I leaned out away from the turn at that very last little step and really helped him out. Pitched the reins to him again, and look at how quiet he wants to be. That is really cool stuff right there. And so this particular 360 is a really good example of how I correct it when they start to cheat me and kick their hip out. I got to give them a quick reminder, so I put him in a counter arc here. We do a little bit of a turn on the forehand and kick his hip over off the rail, and just a quick reminder. You know, if you went to the gym and you were trying to learn how to do a push-up, let's say you couldn't do a full push-up. You know, you could do a modified push-up, you could do part of a push-up, and then, you know, you have to build up your strength in order to be able to do the push-up correctly. So what if your trainer constantly thumped on you every time you didn't get the push-up just right? You know, that's kind of the way I see it. You know, we have to reward the good stuff and maybe not pay as much attention to something that's bad. We just kind of reward the good and build on the good and constantly build on the good. I think that's kind of the, I don't know, the theory that I take in training, I guess. So to the left, he's so much better to the left, which we've known all along. He's stronger to the left on everything, and he's a little weaker to the right, and that's fine. We're all going to have that. We all have our good side and bad side. And not only that, but I am personally stronger on my right side when I cue versus when I'm cueing on my left side. So part of this strength also comes from me as well as a rider. I am just stronger through my entire body on my right side. I've had a lot more injuries to my left side. I currently have a severe injury to my ankle on my left side, so I am not as effective of a rider on my entire left side. So we're seeing that come full circle in my riding. You know, these horses are a mirror image of their rider, their trainer, their owner, their breeder, and this guy is just being a mirror image of me. So part of the reason for doing all of these 360s at a walk is obviously it's the slowest gait possible to teach it to him, and then it's also because we're allowing him to rest and catch his breath. And here in a sec there's a slight edit. My cameraman needed to rest for a second, and then I go back to work again. I subconsciously made the decision that I was going to work on flying lead changes in this ride after he did so well with all of the other basic handle maneuvers. I start out doing some basic drop to trot lead changes. Right here, he was losing ambition. I was starting to run out of horse. I spank him to pick up his right lead as we come across the arena here. And I'm just going to let him work some drop to trot lead changes, set the perimeter of my arena, set the pattern I'm going to take with him. So these are called simple lead changes. He wanted to take his left lead again there on me when I set him up to go right, and I had to correct him right there. This is probably the easiest lead change to make on a horse. And he was starting to anticipate just a little bit, so I took him there in another circle. That's one way to help fix the anticipation process. And he was really wanting to change direction, so I just went with it. It's a little bit of a balancing technique, but you do still have to have the lateral on the horse when you do this. And it does help to have a wall there, to, you know, when you're first trying to get it. I always recommend it when you have really good ground. I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to do this in my arena at home on the crappy ground that I have there. So I just really took advantage of my entire surrounding this entire day out. And remember, you see the spank on the outside hip when you're changing directions. I go ahead and let him stop. We back up a few steps, and then we play game over. Now, when I first start doing flying lead changes like that, I'm only asking for a couple. He was getting pretty played out to begin with, so I didn't want to do too many of them because I didn't. You need that natural impulsion and that natural energy in order to get the lead change in the first place. And so if you don't have it and you keep drilling it and you're not getting it, then it's really even that much harder to get it, and they start to despise it, they start to anticipate it. That's when they really start to kind of run off with you, and you're running around the arena on the wrong lead and you don't know where the heck you're going. So I generally try to do a flying lead change when I have a little bit more energy in my colt. But in this case, I used it because I was getting such good lateral this whole entire ride that I wanted to finish on trying to get it. And so I got 2 pretty decent ones there, and I called it quits with that. If I'd only gotten one on one side, I'd have been fine with that too, and then I would have known where my weaknesses were, and I could have gone back, worked on more lateral with him, and improved the lateral on one side or the other, and then we could have gone from there. I continue to play game over with him. I take these little opportunities to work on that 360, holding that body through the turn, and he held it for about 3/4 of the turn there. So I'm really, really happy with how well he's progressed up to this point. And he's staying really, really quiet. He's going long and low for a stretch. You know, I think that's a pretty good gauge that it was a very good ride, that he has learned something we've kind of didn't do wrong. We have a better individual than what we started with. And I'm still playing around with this side pass out in the open. We're still not quite getting it. So I just accept that it's going to be a little bit of a quarter turn on the haunches. And I'm not going to fight with him. Take the opportunity to back him up a few steps and step off. So there it is. Flying lead changes on ride number 12. I want to give a huge shout out again to Cass Equine for letting me ride in their indoor barn. I wouldn't have been able to get that done out in the footing at home because we got some cold, hard, slippery ground now. But I'm super, super pleased with this colt to be able to handle being hauled to a neighbor's house. You know, the only other time he's been hauled is to go to the vet and get a dental done, so I'm really happy how well he took it. He's had, I think, 1 or 2 days off since our last ride, and it was pretty darn cold our last ride. I think that was the day it was 20 degrees, and it's 50 today, and I'm sure it's probably 60, 65 here in this barn, and you can just see how much he's sweating. So to be able to walk in here, ride around all the banners, ride through the light shadow coming off the side of the wall, this horse is really going to be able to handle a lot of stuff that's thrown at him over the next few years as he matures. I'm just really, really pleased with him. So, you know, I sure appreciate you watching. If you've made it this far, check the description box for all the links to all the other rides, and we're going to keep on plugging along, riding in and out every chance we get for a total of 20 rides. So we'll catch you on the next ride. Thanks.